Hello and welcome to another episode of Bridging Divides. In this series, I raise some challenges facing the developing world and then open them up for discussion. Is China an asset or liability for the developing world? Let's address that question today. Here's the context first though. In the Cold War era, China's relations with the developing world were based on a combination of ideology and foreign policy interests. During these times, Beijing used its solidarity with the Third World to distinguish itself from the United States and the Soviet Union, both of which China then considered hegemonic powers. It was then all about ideology, now it's all about economy. But things have changed since then. The dragon woke up and China, as we know, registered phenomenal growth over 3 decades. According to World Bank, since its embrace of the global market, China has lifted over 800 million people out of poverty. Today, as world's second largest economy and the largest manufacturing economy, China is among the chief drivers of global economic growth. It is also the world's fastest growing consumer market, and its growing middle class has tremendous spending capacity. But here comes the dichotomy. China's relentless supply of cheap goods has destroyed various cottage industries around the world, especially the developing world. It is believed that the country's debt book diplomacy invests its way through to gaining foothold on strategic assets in poor countries. China's acquisition of the strategic Hambantota port from Sri Lanka is said to be an example of debt trap and ambitious use of loans to gain influence. Pakistan, another example, is banking heavily on China's contribution to its infrastructure projects, but they have been described as Chinese projects built for China's geopolitical and economic advantage. This model also doesn't create sufficient local jobs, as manpower is mostly brought from China. A recent survey revealed that Southeast Asian countries should be cautious in negotiating with China on its Belt and Road Initiative to avoid being trapped in unsustainable debt situations. Some African countries are also beginning to realize that infrastructure indeed assists rapid economic development, but can also become a heavy burden in the long run. China is not necessarily helping them strike that balance. A country in Africa recently even accused China of mining gold in the garb of development. Some of China's neighbors view the country's territorial disputes and expansionist overdrive as those of a hegemon. Remember China calling Cold War powers as hegemons? How the world has changed. But here is the question though. Why, with its economy projected to experience a downward trend this year, will China finally move from being an asset to liability for the developing world? Let me know your thoughts and see you in another episode of Bridging Divides.